Talk about something that has been floating around and been parts of conversations that I have been having. And it's about toxicity. That's a buzzword that's like narcissism and a whole lot of other buzzwords that are out there. And we kind of throw it out loosely. But when something or someone or situation or climate is toxic, it just means it's not good for us. Basically, it's poisonous. Um, it creates an unhealthy air. Um, in the environment, and also it just creates an unhealthy vibe for us and energy. So hopefully we can just not make it as complicated as some people have been. But I want to deal with the word toxic in like an oxymoron kind of way. I've talked in the past about toxic positivity, and I've talked about toxic loyalty, and I'm going to jump back on them tonight. But I just want to add two more um, behaviors that people tend to to act out, do, and even say in responding, all in the name of being um, honest and being pure, authentic, um, trying to be present, trying to do the right thing, say the right thing. But sometimes in trying to say the right thing, we say absolutely the wrong thing. And we really aren't helping the situation. You know, one of the most awkward, I think, places where people say things and later on find out through family members how awkward and inappropriate some things are is at funerals, and I am one, if I don't know what to say, I've learned, and I have to be mindful sometimes, even though I want to say something to make the person really believe that I'm there, I'm present, I'm with them, that is the gift of presence, being present rather is better than running off the mouth and saying things that really are unwanted and unwelcomed by individuals. So I want to deal with four tonight: toxic behaviors or responses, actions that we tend to not even think about, but can be harmful. And I just think being a reflector, that we ought to think about what we're doing. And before I go any further, I do need you to hit that share button. If you're on YouTube, I need you to hit share. I need you to hit like. I need you to comment and be engaged. Remember, we're trying to build this community up on this side of the woods. Yeah, it's a whole different vibe over here. Yes, it is. All right. And for those who may be new tuning in, I am a life coach as well as an author. Take these glasses off, they're glare. I'm a life coach as well as an author, and I've been podcasting since 2010. But I'll say that I'm sleepy, y'all. So let me just get myself together. And but in the same sentence, right? But this year I've started podcasting on YouTube, so it's a bit different. All right. And so I basically speak from my life coach experiences. And by the way, my niches are in family dynamics and forgiveness. And if you're interested for a free consultation, log on to my site, www.stephanniebooks.com. All right. I don't want to be on here too long. All right. But if you've been following me a minute, you know that I do come from chapters from my books mostly. And this is a faith-based, Christian-based broadcast. So a lot of what I say is rooted, established, founded in scripture. All right, with no apologies. But let's get to tonight's session, dealing with those responses. All right. The first one I want to deal with is toxic empathy. We are hearing a lot about being empathetic. Before I retired, and I did 30 plus years in the school system, and character traits was a big thing throughout different school districts. It would leave and come back, and empathy was one of them. Try to understand, walk in another person's shoes to really get the gist of, what they're going through and what life could be like for them, before you start to talk about how, bad things are and this, that, and the other, try to see things from their point of view. Well, toxic empathy seems like definitely an oxymoron because we are told to be empathetic, to continually try to see and feel another person's point of view, try to understand their plight, um, and what it's like to be them. The problem with that is if we're not careful, and I've seen this happen, especially in school systems where people feel guilty teaching sometimes the population that they teach, and they I mean, it's and kids can tell when you're just being you're not being sympathetic or empathetic, you're pitying them, and some of them will run with that. But make a long story short, we can overdo it in our attempt to relate and to identify with other people and feel someone's pain, that we start to accept inappropriate behavior. Yeah, there are people who do try to get over. We accept inappropriate and unacceptable behavior, all in trying to understand someone else's behavior. And it makes us feel bad, the person who's trying to be empathetic. It makes us feel bad about what's happening because we're like, what did we do to deserve this response from this person? I've seen people dismiss red flags. I've tried it, and it's a very uncomfortable feeling trying to dismiss what the person is. The person is actually being inappropriate, really being a bad, and that, and just trying to ignore the situation. I tell you, it really becomes a situation where you're enabling negative habits, really. And that's really just bad energy all around. It really is. All in the name of empathy, to say that, I feel you, I understand you, I hear you. But you are taking advantage of this moment of me trying to be understanding. Now, what it's one thing for that person to be, I'm sorry guys, all this moving around, I'm trying to get this camera right. It's one thing for the person who I'm trying to have empathy for to be acting out and acting foolish. It's another for me to know I don't like how this is making me feel. Now, if I decide to continue allowing this behavior to go on and make me feel uncomfortable and awful inside, now I'm trying to do something good here, but when I allow it, that's when it becomes toxic, because now it's no longer an authentic situation where I am coming in to help someone, to understand someone so that I can help them. They're acting inappropriate. I know that they're acting inappropriate and I accept it. That's toxic. What's really going on here? Toxic empathy. When we see that someone is abusing our moment of vulnerability and authenticity, we need to step back. We need to pull back. We need to have the courage to pull back. We need to have the emotional maturity to step back. And A reality is that as much as we want to help people, there are some individuals who reject help, don't embrace help, abuse help. They see it as something very warped based off of their life experiences. And I just believe that there are more than enough people out here to help and who will appreciate help. Oftentimes, though, we are toxic in how we choose to help people. We choose who we want to help, and our why is not clear or our why is warped. We want to help people for reasons that are not sincere. Also, we need to ask ourselves why are we doing that. So our why needs to be really, it needs to be strengthened, and it needs to be correct. We need to come correct. So that whole toxic empathy centers around the person who says he or she is being empathetic. We're not responsible for other people's behaviors. We're only responsible for ours. And so, even though we're trying to be empathetic, help someone who's in a dire situation and try to understand what it's like to be them. If they are being disrespectful, verbally, physically, whatever to us, psychologically, you name it, we have to be at a place where we emotionally step away and give that energy. If that's really something we really feel convicted to do, there are tons of people out here, adults and children, who we can be empathetic to and who will embrace our help. So toxic empathy is on the person who claims to be empathetic, but is very aware that what they are getting on the receiving end is not an embrace, and they are making a decision to take the heat, take the abuse with no effectiveness, no success from that, none at all. That's toxic. Neither person is helped by that. The other toxic response I think we ought to be aware of is the toxic apology. I believe that when we apologize, we say that we're sorry, we ought to be really convicted of it and not feel bad just for a moment, or believe that saying I'm sorry is the same as taking ownership. I think oftentimes, and children learn this very early, very early. People learn this very early. If I just say I'm sorry, then everything is forgotten and we move on. But I think that a true apology actually is framed by understanding what I said or didn't say, or did or didn't do, that wounded a person, offended someone, created, a dark situation, what have you. Taking ownership of it. A false apology is one where a person says, I'm sorry, but I would not have done that if you had not have. I would not have done that if you would have. The apology is coming from you because of something you did. So how did I become a part of it? That projecting, that bringing the wounded person into the situation is cruel. It really is. It's cruel. It lacks ownership. And hopefully you can see the poison in that, because it's really bringing ownership to the wounded person. I deal with people, I talk to people who've been traumatized in a myriad of ways. And for many of them, and I can relate because I've been in situations like that, they are traumatized over and over again. They're re-traumatized for various reasons, places that they put themselves in, feeling that they are they need to be there, or they need to do this, that, or the other, and they become re-traumatized. Being re-traumatized is more work, because it's already work to deal with whatever caused trauma, and dealing with and recognizing triggers to that trauma. And when those things have not been dealt with, and a person enters a space that triggers them, and they're re-traumatized, it's even more work that that person has to do to be healed, delivered, made whole. Receiving toxic apologies is one of those things that can re-traumatize a person. Whatever the apology is needed for already created an offense, a trauma maybe. When a person claims to apologize and chooses to blame the offended one, that is, wow, that is sinister, it is cruel, it's malicious, it's foul, it is toxic. If you don't want to apologize, just don't, But if you have to come at someone and literally blame them for a reason or cause for your behavior, it's immature. And bottom line is, it's toxic. So an apology should come with true ownership. And I think people ought to be emotionally mature enough to know that they're not ready to apologize. As a teacher, especially when I was an elementary school teacher, I never liked when I saw adults force children to apologize. Say you're sorry and shake hands. You can't force that emotion. You're not really sorry yet. Maybe you're sorry later and you'll get there, but come on. Just because you tell me to say I'm sorry doesn't mean I really am sorry. And now you're harboring all of these other feelings because you made me say something that I'm not ready to say. Wait, I don't really mean it. I'm not sorry, And I've had some children say that, and I respect that. Okay, we'll get there. We'll talk about it later. Give them that room, that space, that space to feel. I just believe if you're not sorry, you're not apologetic, you're not remorseful, you don't, regret what you did, and you're not repentive. Maybe you're sorry you got caught. Maybe you're sorry that you got called to the carpet and called out, but you're not sorry for what you did. That it's genuine. It is what it is. Take ownership of it. You're not ready to apologize. You're not taking ownership of it. So don't, because it is heard, it is understood, and it is seen. Because when we're not perfect, but when we are authentically apologetic, and we really are sorry for what we do, it does show up in what we do. It'll show up. All right. The other two I've talked about before, so I'm going to briefly go through those, and that's toxic positivity. We're all called to be upbeat, and to be positive, say something that's positive, just say beautiful things. We don't want to hear any negativity. Well, all in the name of not being negative. Sometimes we are negative. We're trying to be upbeat and positive, but we are unintentionally, we are becoming really dismissive sometimes. How so, you may ask? How am I being dismissive? We choose to respond to a negative word or thought with a false assurance rather than true empathy. Oh, it'll be okay. Everything works out, it's going to work out, and well, when you're saying it to someone in that moment, how is it going to work out? I've had people challenge that. How is that? Give me how is it going to work out? When people challenge us with that, be ready for an answer. you know, we choose to respond to a negative word or thought with a false assurance rather than true empathy. It comes from our, I think, discomfort with negative emotions and thoughts. We don't like to hear, especially for someone we like and love and care for, we don't want to hear them say something negative or feel bad. We just want to get rid of it. It makes us uncomfortable, especially if we haven't been down the road that they're traveling. And I've witnessed this from many people, and I've had it happen in my own life. We get uncomfortable. We get uncomfortable with negative feelings, and we simply get uncomfortable with negative realities, especially when we can't relate. When we can't relate, we know this is a reality, but we can't relate, and that makes us uncomfortable oftentimes. And when it makes us uncomfortable, it shows that we are lacking the capacity really to empower people and to encourage someone who's in a negative state. So we just, get over it. It'll pass. This too shall. We have these little sayings, this too shall pass. I'm not saying the sayings are, need to be stopped, but understand that sometimes they're just not called for. It's not the moment. This too shall pass. That's not empowering me right now, and I laugh because sometimes again we don't know what to say, and sometimes it's just best not to say nothing. I never forget I was going through something once, and all I just wanted to be was around people who I felt loved me. And one of them was my pastor, and we were and all he did was came over and just put his arm around me. He didn't say anything, but in that moment, that spoke to me and for me. Sometimes just all we need is a look, just to be there, a hand. I've been in a situation where I was sitting next to someone, and all she did was just grab my hand. That was enough. Because sometimes those words we can't take back, and the words aren't comforting, they aren't empowering, and if anything, they may disempower us. And sometimes if we're not careful, our discomfort with the situation comes out. And our discomfort denies and buries the true feelings that people are actually feeling. We don't want to do that. We don't want to deny people what they're feeling. We don't want them to bury their true feelings. All right. So in the name of being positive, sometimes, and I know it's hard and you think quick on your feet sometimes like that, but sometimes, because words do matter, sometimes there are no words in that moment. And we can distort a moment, with some things that we say, all in the name of trying to be positive and trying to be upbeat. We can distort it and we become toxic. I'm going to tell you something before I get to this last one. You're talking about distorted and becoming toxic. A lot of this is unintentional. See, this is unintentional. This is not intended malice. This is innocent, as my first lady said this years ago, and I never forgot it. Innocent ignorance. When we know better, we should do better. So we should think before we open our mouths, or don't say anything at all. That's just wisdom. Do I say something, and what do I say? That's wisdom. Sometimes we just don't say anything, but innocently, sometimes we do say things, and they're just inappropriate for the moment. It's a disempowering of that person's feelings, that moment altogether. And that's what makes our responses toxic. I had an incident happen to me during the summers. I purchased a new brand of makeup, and I followed this young lady on Instagram who was giving this hack of how to apply the makeup. Now, the way to apply the makeup was out of the norm. I bought this setting spray and primer, and normally there's a sequence when to use this makeup. Anyway, but she was using it differently, like in the middle, you know. And so I tried it. I liked it. I really liked the look that I had afterwards. But I noticed when I used it, the last Sunday of July. The next day, my face was itchy and just a little puffiness around my eyes. Wasn't a big deal because some mornings now I get the puffiness, a little itchy. Then about a week later, I noticed I had this patch. It seemed like eczema type of patch or whatever. Over a series of weeks, I watched my skin literally change. Light, dark, spots, eczema patches. And then it just went away. I put a cold compass on, went away. And then I noticed, I think it was like in August, I had this major breakout. And I tell you, it was like I didn't recognize me. I knew it was me, but I didn't recognize me. And I'm gonna show you a picture in a minute. I'm saying this to say, and I'll show you the picture to say, that I was using something to enhance me, something that FDA approved, harmless, harmless, but there were toxins in what I was using. And I'll tell you, this is the first look. That was the first time. Look at those bruises. Look at where the bruises are. That was the first outbreak. Then I had a second outbreak. I had a first outbreak in August. Then I had one in September. And this was the most recent one in October. Okay. That's me. I had a relative tell me, "You look like Emmett Till." I'm like, "Yeah, and you know what? I do." I can laugh about it now. But I show those pictures to show how distorted we can become, or something can become, without intention. Something toxic applied to my face. There's products I've been using for years, but I did introduce something new. I introduced something new, a new product, and I introduced a different routine. Distorted my face. All right. Something that was meant for my good, for me to look good, but ultimately it was toxic and it did not bless me at all. Trust me, y'all. My face was on fire, literally. Not only swollen, but on fire, itching like crazy, on fire, hot, and I did all kind of things to pull back to see if it was what I was eating, because I am trying to eat better. So I thought it was some fruits that I was using differently, but it when I started looking at when it happened, when I made some purchases, when I introduced that product to my skin, when I introduced that routine to my skin, everything centered around a new product, a toxic product that's FDA approved, a product that was not for me, that didn't work for me. It may have worked for someone else, but it didn't work for me. And oftentimes our words are like that. We mean well. The words, they're good. They're not meant to harm, but we can harm. We can harm. And so the bottom line is to think before we speak. And how often do we put foot in mouth? Because we don't. We don't think before we speak. All right. So we can become toxic at any moment, all in the name of being good and being positive, being upbeat. I didn't mean any harm. And I think that's why it's hard too for some people to apologize, because they really believe and feel that they didn't mean any harm and still don't see how innocently we can still harm someone. All right, so that takes me to the last one, toxic loyalty, which I've talked about before. That, being loyal, apologetic, empathetic, positive, all of these are admirable, noble traits to have. But in, with the wrong mission, wrong person, it's toxic. Toxic loyalty is another one, like empathy and being apologetic, being loyal, it's admirable, you know, even when loyal, loyal to the who, loyal to the what is wrong, it's still admirable. I mean, we got this term out here, ride or die. I ain't riding and I'm not dying with no. I'm not riding with it. To prove what? To who? If you really think about that term, that's a whole nother show. Ride or die. What? I mean, how much sense does that make? But that is funneled under loyalty, loyalty to abuse, loyalty to longevity, hanging in there, staying in toxicity, true toxicity for the sake of longevity. Come get out of here. You know, it's admirable, but I'm telling you, people can hold us hostage to these terms. And if we're not careful, we'll be shamed, we'll be bullied, we'll be guilted into being loyal to individuals, companies, missions that disempower us. Yes, I like that word, disempower us. Taking away our strength, the energy that we come with to grow is just dismantled, And I tell you, energy that comes with this unhealthy attachment and misplaced allegiance is also manipulative. It really is. Toxic loyalty condones or it's complicit to bad behavior. Being loyal to who and what is important. When we are loyal to what we know is wrong, what we know is unholy, we know that is right, that's toxic. It's toxic, tolerating bad behavior from anyone, our children, co-workers, you name it. That should not be us. All right. We are even, tolerating bad behavior. I thought about this. Becoming a flying monkey, we become an enabler for someone. We embolden people when we are loyal to bad behavior. It's self-destructive. So being toxic, like I said, I've talked about toxic loyalty and toxic positivity before. There's always more to say about that, right? So, being toxic, folks, is something that we need to think about. Is this me? Is this who I am? Is this how I want to be represented? But a lot of people are not psychologically, emotionally strong to step away from that manipulative behavior that draws them and binds them. And prayerfully, people will be delivered from that. So my whole point tonight was to bring these 4 character traits, which are noble when they are done correctly, and worked out and worked through in the right spaces, but can become poisonous when we're misguided. And when we are in relationships, when we are in alignment, in agreement with mission statements from whether they're companies, organizations that have an agenda not to empower anybody. So we have to really be careful how we present ourselves and how we talk to each other. All right. So my whole point tonight was to just be aware, be reflective, and understand where your empathy should lie, where it should go. Invest. And I do believe in being loyal, empathetic, apologetic, and positive. But be careful where you invest them, and how you invest them. Just make sure that if you find yourself maybe in the beginning investing in a very good cause and a good person, and maybe you start to see things turn, maybe the relationship takes a turn, maybe the job is not what you thought, the journey is changing. Have the courage to reflect, because you're feeling it, but be strong enough to step back, be courageous enough to step back. And don't give up also on being positive because you poured into the wrong person, or you poured into a wrong, you invested in a wrong cause. Don't quit being empathetic, trying to understand where someone is coming from and feeling them out because someone who you did try to invest in, tried to walk all over you and abuse you verbally or financially, who knows. Don't allow those mishaps, those even offenses towards you when you were trying to do something noble, be a reason not to discover and find someone or some cause to be loyal to, or to be positive about, to be empathetic in, and to be apologetic, because we're not perfect. There's going to be something you and I will have to apologize for before it's all over. All right. Well, that's it for this week, everybody, and I hope that you've been blessed. For free consultation for coaching, log on to www.stephaniebooks.com, and I'll be glad to see if we are a good fit. All right. And for signed copies of the book, also log on there, but you can get the books wherever books are sold. All right. Take care, everybody. It's been a great week, a long day. Lots going on here, but I'm glad you joined me tonight. Anyhow, take care, be blessed, and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.